Did you know that ColourPop Cosmetics can go from concept to finished product in as little as 5 days? Welcome to the Cosmetic Chronicles, the podcast where history meets beauty and tells the amazing stories behind some of the world's most notorious brands. I'm your host, Sarah Carvalho, and I'm a beauty journalist who has been obsessed with makeup since my first swipe of mascara. In this episode, we're covering ColourPop, a brand known for their highly rated products at an affordable price and seemingly never-ending releases. So we'll obviously start as normal with a little Sarah story. I was actually under a ColourPop rock until the pandemic when my personal makeup shopping habit skyrocketed, like so many of us, and I started trying new brands. And one of them being ColourPop, since so many beauty YouTubers that I was watching at the time were always commenting on the amazing quality for the price. I wish I could remember my very first purchase, but I believe it was their Going Coconuts collection. So I snagged a 9-pan eyeshadow palette, an iconic Super Shock shadow, and a bronzer that I actually just used today. So still have all those things. To say I was sold immediately is an understatement. I very quickly saw why so many people really loved using the palettes, why the formula was so highly regarded, and the fact that I could get so much product and makeup for such a little price. While we have drugstore brands that allow that, it seemed like ColourPop was just doing something a little different. And for the record, I currently own at least 11 ColourPop palettes, plus an entire pink collection of their lippy sticks and a few of their cream gel liners. So obviously we're going to talk more about the iconic products later on in the episode, but definitely keep an eye out on my Instagram because I'm going to show some of the photos I've taken of my ColourPop products over the years so you can see my long love that I've had with this brand. But first, before we do any of that, let's go back to the beginning. Right at the top, I want to say a huge thank you to the brand. They were kind enough to send me some of their iconic products, and I really can't wait to show you them in action, along with the ones that I own as well, over on my Instagram. So make sure you keep an eye on my page this week. We'll be doing a ColourPop week with lots of visual content. So if you don't follow me already, I'm over at Instagram at Glow and Flow by Sarah. The link is also in the show notes. But thank you to the brand for hooking your girl up. So ColourPop was officially launched in May of 2014 by siblings Laura Nelson and John Nelson. However, their story actually begins back in the late 1980s when their family purchased one of the first cosmetic manufacturers in Southern California. Specifically, in 1989, the Nelson family purchased the established Spatz Laboratories from its founder, Walter Spatz. And so from 1989, over the next 25 years or so, the Nelson family built a world-class manufacturing operation, working with major global beauty brands, including L'Oreal and Estee Lauder. Siblings Laura and John forged out on their own, however, studying and working respectively in retail and product development and finance and manufacturing. In 1998, Laura graduated from the University of Arizona. Here's a quote from Laura about her experience in the industry post-college. Quote, I studied retail and consumer studies at the University of Arizona and directly out of school worked for Nordstrom doing special events and sales promotion across a couple of states and many different stores. It was a great training ground for me to really learn and to bring that forward into the other businesses I've been involved in. End quote. Following these experiences, Laura eventually became president and owner of Spatz Laboratories in 2001. And then over the next 13 years, Laura and her brother John would gain intimate working knowledge of the beauty industry, something that would ultimately help them when they came up with a plan to cut out the middleman and create their own side project. Enter Seed Beauty. Here's what John had to say about expanding into their own side project. Quote, part of what allowed this opportunity is that we had been in our incumbent company, Spatz Laboratories, providing products to a lot of global brands. The industry is very much fragmented, but since we have all of this under one roof, it's really a startup based on the heritage of a 60-year-old company, end quote. Now, this is going to be very important as we continue on with this story with how fast ColourPop became successful and are still able to keep their prices down. A lot of it is because they have this 60-year-old manufacturing company that is able to produce all of their products at a record speed. So in 2014, Seed Beauty was officially born as an umbrella company to represent a new endeavor separate from Spatz Laboratories' primary production business. The goal was a one-stop shop for creating new beauty brands. Laura explained this further in a quote, saying, quote, "We produce and make everything under this roof, from the package production to the formula to the R&D, product development, marketing. So we have the ability to bring new ideas and concepts to market very quickly," end quote. So what was the first brand that launched under Seed Beauty? Well, you may have guessed it, ColourPop. ColourPop launched in May of 2014 with 31 shades of their very soon-to-be iconic product, their Super Shock Shadow. Now, this shadow was an innovative cream-to-powder eyeshadow formula designed for vibrant, long-lasting color payoff that was really unlike anything else that was on the market at the time. And I actually don't think there's anything that's quite like it still. It's a very interesting formula. The way that it just kind of feels a little gel-like, but it's not. It feels like it could be wet, but it's not wet. It's so hard to describe, and that is why I think it's so interesting, is it's hard to put it into a box. So this initial offering emphasized bold, trend-driven hues at accessible prices. So this really set the tone for the brand's commitment to luxury quality makeup without premium markups. And also from the beginning, ColourPop adopted a direct-to-consumer model, shipping products straight from their in-house facility to foster both affordability and rapid iteration based on customer feedback. So again, they were able to ship everything directly in-house to keep costs down and then also to be able to make things very quick. So basically, instead of massive companies that plan their launches a year or more ahead of time, John and Laura had their 20-something-year-old staffers on social media asking the brand's consumers what they want. Then they would roll it out as soon as it was ready, all without needing to even leave their office in California. The brand also positioned themselves as 100% cruelty-free while focusing on fun, experimental shades to appeal to a diverse audience. This approach aligned with the philosophy of price to play, which encouraged users to explore bold colors without financial risks. It's giving a little Wet n Wild, right? So I would say their formative years were between 2014 and 2016. So this is when they experienced that rapid initial growth I was talking about, fueled by social media buzz. So again, they're leaning into the things that were new at the time. They did not use traditional advertising. I feel like I'm repeating myself, but it was the same way with Milani and with e.l.f. They did not use, a typical print advertising campaign. There were no commercials. For ColourPop specifically, they leaned into social media buzz, and they specifically leaned into using influencers. So they wanted to make a splash on Instagram where influencers like Kathleen Lights and user-generated content before that was a thing, started sharing swatches and tutorials of their products. They would also release exclusive limited product drops. They still do this to this day, often tied to trending aesthetics. So that also created a sense of urgency as well as community engagements. People wanted to see swatches and see how it looked as soon as possible so that they could decide if they wanted to get it before you could no longer get it. So basically, all of this instantaneous feedback of social media quickly established the brand as a go-to for affordable, high pigment makeup among younger demographics, people who wanted to play a little bit more but didn't want to go broke, right? But also the people that did not want to miss out on the trends. So here's a quote from Laura about how ColourPop was part of this kind of overall democratization of beauty in the late 2010s. She says, quote, "The democratization of beauty has been driven by two main factors, the first being social media. Information is being directly provided to the consumers, so there's less filtering, less editing happening, and that really empowers the consumer to make really great purchasing decisions and to get different perspectives directly from the brand. The second factor is e-commerce. Consumers are able to buy those products online, and brands are able to launch products when it works for them and their consumers. Traditionally, you had big retailers setting the pace," end quote. So to say that ColourPop's success was quick is putting it mildly. Here's just one example. So on Cyber Monday 2015, which is what, a year and a half after they launched, ColourPop closed more sales, both in volume and gross dollar amount, than they had in all of 2014 combined. They peaked at around 2,000 add to cart clicks per minute, closing 5 to 10 sales every second. For the brand, Cyber Monday 2015 resulted in such impressive results and record breaking high sales that they actually canceled their upcoming December promotion just to make sure they could satisfy the demand from that Cyber Monday. That is wild. And like I said, that's less than 2 years after launching without traditional advertising and only their own online store as a retail option. There was nowhere else you could get ColourPop except for their own website. So, like I mentioned in the beginning, they launched with their immediately popular Super Shock Shadow, and they quickly kind of hopped onto that success by expanding into lip products. So, they created lippy sticks, which are lipsticks, and then coordinating lippy pencils, which you guessed it, are lip pencils, all priced at $5 each at that time. And the brand offered these kits in multiple finishes, including matte, satin, and glossy, with an extensive color range that went from classic nudes all the way to like mint, turquoise blue, and black. And for anyone keeping track of the dates and kind of knows what's going on around this time, this was before Kylie Jenner's big lip kits, which don't worry, those will come into play in this story later. Along with their eyeshadows and these lip kits, they quickly expanded even further into blushes, bronzers, and highlighters, building out a comprehensive color cosmetics line while maintaining their ultra affordable price point. All of this was launched by 2016, but also keep in mind that their ideation to production timeline is much quicker since everything is done in-house, right? And also, with the rise of social media and influencers, they were getting feedback from their consumers faster than ever before. So, here's a quote from Laura about how this would work in real time. I thought this was really fascinating. Quote, most of the product categories that we've chosen to launch have been based on the feedback from our community. Early on, an influencer gave us some feedback on Instagram saying if only they had a hot pink shade. So we said, okay, let's do a hot pink shade. And 2 weeks later, we launched it. After having conversations with our community, our influencers, and friends, they encouraged us to bring on a lipstick line, which was the next product category that we created. End quote. So, needless to say, in my opinion at least, they had a leg over legacy brands like Estee Lauder and L'Oreal since their popularity actually came from social media and a direct-to-consumer online-only offering. So they had a leg up over those brands at that time because they were already working with social media, while legacy brands were a little bit slower to adapt to obviously the changing marketplace. Then in November of 2016, ColourPop launched what I call their first intellectual property collab. Using intellectual property is going to become one of their biggest strategies moving forward. But it all began in 2016 with their ColourPop and Hello Kitty collab. This collection featured 23 products made up of a full line, including lip gloss, individual eyeshadows, lipsticks, blush, and liquid lipsticks inspired by the iconic character, with everything retailing between $5 and $8. This collection sold out in no time and actually led to 2 future Hello Kitty collabs over the next few years. So up until this time, ColourPop had only been available on their own website, but they decided to start expanding into physical retail. And that began with their first major partnership with Sephora in August of 2017. So they decided to introduce select products to Sephora stores, an online platform for a holiday launch. Now, from what I could tell, the partnership was always announced as a limited edition holiday collection, not anything permanent, but it seemed like people were kind of confused that by April of 2018, they had been quietly pulled from Sephora's website without any like official announcement. So it's a little murky, but from what I can tell from the press releases, they did always say it was a limited edition holiday collection, but I couldn't find much more info on that. But don't worry, the timing always works out because ColourPop decided to launch at Ulta Beauty in February of 2018. So not that long after their Sephora debut. And it seems like the Ulta partnership may have been a better fit for the brand anyway, since ColourPop has remained at Ulta and they're still there to this day. A few other notable releases. In June of 2018, the brand launched their No Filter foundation in a whopping 42 shades. So, this foundation was meant to be used with their extended No Filter concealer range. And at only $12, ColourPop cemented themselves as a company that can help consumers find the perfect foundation match in a more accessible and affordable way than having to spend $40, $50 on a foundation. And then in September of 2018, ColourPop launched a 19-piece Disney designer collection inspired by Disney's limited edition designer collection, the Premiere Series Dolls. I don't know what any of that was. If you are a Disney adult, you probably know exactly what I just said. I have no idea what that is. But the collection included a 15 pan eyeshadow palette priced at $20, 6 luxe lipsticks, which I love, by the way, at $7, some lip glosses, individual eyeshadows, and highlighters, all priced at $20 and under. And and the ColourPop Disney collaboration proved highly successful for them, achieving a 15 times return on social campaigns, a 7.5 time return on remarketing efforts, and a 5 time return on prospecting campaigns. Leading into 2019, ColourPop saw additional growth and expansion, including more IP success collaborations and further iconic product releases. One of those releases was in September of 2019. They've released their first tinted moisturizer called the Hyaluronic Tinted Moisturizer. Tried it, loved it. The same year, they also won the Allure Best of Beauty Award for their ColourPop BFF Volumizing Mascara as a Best Color Mascara. And then in November 2022, the brand launched an exclusive limited edition collection at Target, available both online and in stores nationwide, and that ran all the way through February of 2023. That limited edition collection for Target included 4 9-pan pressed powder palettes. Woof! That was a sentence. Some Super Shock shadows, Super Shock highlighters, and a lippy stick trio. So all the products were priced at under $18. And the collection featured exclusive shades created specifically for Target. This ended up being very successful for both Target and the brand, and so they ended up announcing a long-term partnership with Target, now with more than 120 ColourPop makeup products becoming available online and at Target stores that started in January 2023. So during these years, the 2019 to 2023 times, they also leaned even more into their ability to purchase licenses and started pumping out some giant collaborations. Here are just some of the examples. The first one is a Sailor Moon collaboration that came out in February of 2020, and this featured an 8-piece collection including 2 lip bundles, 2 blush compacts, glitter gels, and an eyeshadow palette. The collection sold out super quickly and had to be restocked a few months later. Consumers could actually get the full collection for $89, which these days just feels like a steal. That's like a blush from a luxury brand at this point. Then in October of 2020, ColourPop collaborated with Lucasfilm and Disney to create a limited edition palette, specifically featuring the child, or Baby Yoda, as the main theme. I own this palette. I love this palette. It is so beautiful. And the success of this launch, partly because of me buying it, led to future limited edition palettes over the next 2 years, including the Mandalorian palette and the Darth Vader palette, all of which I own. It's my little collection. I barely use it. I just like having the packaging. It's so pretty. Then they partnered again with Hello Kitty in December of 2020 to create an exclusive holiday Friends winter collection. In January of 2021, they collaborated with Animal Crossing. Remember that? And that New Horizons collection quickly sold out within the first day. That's going to end up being a theme for them. In June of 2021, they had their summer-themed Hello Kitty Tropical Escape collection. That collection included 4 eyeshadow quads, 2 pressed powder blushes, a glowing lip balm kit with 3 shades, and a pineapple pop lippy scrub. Then in July of 2022, they announced their collaboration with global K-pop sensation BTS, you may have heard of them, which was actually inspired by the BT21 animated characters. So this collection included a 24 shade Bon Voyage pressed powder palette, some Luxe lip oils, and 7 Super Shock shadows that had some tie-dye finishes. So basically, if there's demand for an IP themed makeup collection, chances are ColourPop is either working on it or has already done it. So I found this quote by their director of brand partnerships and growth, Dasha Suharev, who explains why they lean into these partnerships. Quote, our inspiration behind all of these collaborations always comes back to our core brand value, our customers. We are known for listening and responding to our community's asks, carefully taking into account our customers' feedback so that their interests are front and center. We continue to see strong demand for licensed consumer products and want to ensure we can accommodate this ask from the community. We've had numerous collections sell out in 10 minutes or less, so we want to ensure we can continue building on this demand. The inspiration truly always comes back to our fan base, end quote. To put it in a little bit of perspective, between 2019 and 2024, ColourPop had over 50 collaborations with brands including Harry Potter, Disney, Sailor Moon, Twilight, the NBA, Avatar: The Last Airbender, Naruto, Pokemon, Hocus Pocus, Stranger Things, DreamWorks, Bratz, and even Christmas collabs with Frosty the Snowman, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, and the Grinch. So they clearly found something that worked for them. And if you want a little peek behind the curtain, here's more about the process from Dasha herself. Quote, this is a lengthy process. First, ensuring that our customers have a strong appetite for the collab, as we are a customer-centric brand. Our social listening tools are key to understanding what types of partnerships our customers are interested in. We have dedicated reporting internally to ensure we're hearing what our customers are asking for. Then we conduct comprehensive market research to identify trends, target audience preferences, and gaps in the market. We also have a rigorous proprietary scorecard to help evaluate the best partners for the brand. We take a lot of time to understand the partner's brand guidelines up front and how we can push those boundaries while staying in our sandbox to ensure we merge the two brands authentically. End quote. Oh, Dasha, I'm exhausted. I'm exhausted already. Whew. That has to be a whole department with that many collabs. Whew. So how did all of these collabs and just kind of pumping out these new releases, how did that actually translate into sales success? Well, for one, ColourPop's online store generated $147 million in revenue in 2024, particularly helped by the pandemic e-commerce boom, as we all know, but also the rise of TikTok reviewers and dupe culture. And they're expected to see a growth rate of up to 5% in 2025 compared to 2024, indicating a modest projected growth. According to Anna Yen, CFA at MoneyLion, she thinks that ColourPop has what it takes to stay ahead, even in our current economic downturn. Quote, their business model of offering affordable, high-quality makeup products is sustainable, especially in the short to medium term. However, its long-term success ultimately depends on their ability to innovate and stay ahead of trends while maintaining product quality and affordability. ColourPop has a good chance of lasting long as they continue to meet consumer demands and adapt to market changes, end quote. So in other words, ColourPop has matured from a hyper-growth startup into a more established indie beauty brand, generating approximately $147 million in annual e-commerce revenue. And while the brand experienced explosive growth in its first decade, I'd say from its launch in 2014 to the early 2020s, it has now entered a stabilization phase. Even with a modest single-digit growth projection, that's still a great place to be. The company continues to leverage its core strengths, which are affordable pricing, rapid product development, strategic IP collaborations, strong social media presence, and direct consumer feedback. So while their history may not be as long as some of the legacy beauty brands we've covered on this podcast, they've already made quite a name for themselves, especially at a time when the market was becoming and currently is heavily saturated. I think that they're going to continue to grow as long as, just like the analyst said, they stick to listening to their consumers. All right, it's been a while since we had a rabbit hole. This is your first time listening. This is a segment called the Rabbit Hole of the Week, and it's normally something that happens organically when I'm researching. I start to just go down this rabbit hole. I am researching the brand, looking at their history. I get sidetracked by a headline or a little blip in a story, and then down the rabbit hole I go. So this is this week's rabbit hole. Okay, do you remember how I mentioned the Kylie lip kits? Well, apparently there was a bit of a scandal when they were released. I apparently was under a rock. I heard nothing about this at the time. I don't know what I was doing, but I missed this whole thing. Okay. So I'm going to break it down to you the way that it was broken down to me by the internet. Okay. So when Kylie Jenner launched Kylie Cosmetics in November of 2015, beauty fans immediately noticed similarities between her lip kits and ColourPop's lip kits. And some of those similarities were similar packaging design, the same distinctive scent, a lot of color similarities, comparable formulas and textures, and the fact that both brands were based in Southern California. This led to a lot of widespread speculation on Reddit, on Instagram, and beauty blogs that Kylie Cosmetics was just rebranded ColourPop products, or that maybe Kylie owned ColourPop, but under a different name. That's the other thing. A lot wasn't really known about the ColourPop or Seed Beauty owners at the time. They're still relatively private as well, but at the time no one really knew where this brand exploded from. They didn't really know the history of how long the Nelson siblings have been working in the industry, what they had been doing, what their family had been running for years. It just seemed like this company kind of came out of nowhere and no one could find any information about it because they weren't an influencer. So that didn't help this kind of speculation, right? They were like, does Kylie own this? And is this pretending to make a different lip kit? Basically, what people didn't know is that ColourPop and Kylie Cosmetics were actually both owned by Seed Beauty. So yes, the brand that Laura and her brother created and launched ColourPop under, they also launched Kylie Cosmetics. So the siblings call the Kylie partnership an, quote, incubation program, which meant they provided the means by which Kylie could create her own line and have full creative control using their Spatz laboratory manufacturing facilities and Seed Beauty's other resources. So basically, Seed Beauty offered a one-stop shop for creating new beauty brands, handling everything from manufacturing and assembly to branding, marketing, and fulfillment all under one roof. So yes, Kylie and ColourPop are produced by the same company, but both the brand and Kylie had to come out and explain that it is not the same product. The rumors became such a big deal that Kylie ended up having to post a video on her app in May of 2016 saying, quote, I have an exclusive formula that I created myself, but we have the same manufacturer along with other brands. Just like how those big brands aren't ColourPop is exactly how my brand is. I'm not ColourPop, but I really love ColourPop. I do, but we're not the same, end quote. Also in May of 2016, Laura and John confirmed in an interview with Refinery 29 that their lab, Spatz Laboratories, does make Kylie Cosmetics. In that interview, Laura explains, quote, part of the Seed Beauty business is that we are partners with Kylie Jenner on Kylie Cosmetics, and that is a sister company to ColourPop. Kylie and her family have been friends of ours for years. It's a good fit and a good partnership. We're happy to support that business and partner with her to bring her vision to life in an organic and authentic way. End quote. John also added in that interview, quote, because of the unique demands of Seed's second brand being celeb driven, it requires additional resources. They operate a little differently from each other, and some of the speed to market things that happen within ColourPop are very unique and special to ColourPop. We have more brands that we're in the process of incubating through Seed Beauty, end quote. That was the actual truth, was that they both were manufactured in the same laboratory. But for people, they just kind of felt like it was a scandal. They like I said, Seed Beauty operated very quietly and people didn't know they were the ones making Kylie Cosmetics publicly. Like people didn't know that when Kylie was launched. And so I think people just felt there was like this lack of transparency. So for me, it just seemed like kind of an unnecessary scandal. I think a lot of consumers don't understand that private label contract manufacturing, that's actually pretty standard and is something Spatz Laboratories has been doing for 60 years. But I imagine that especially if a Jenner or a Kardashian is involved, I think people are always trying to look for the scam, right? But just because you share a manufacturer doesn't mean that your products are identical. And also just the way brands are marketed, like influencer brands are marketed as very personal ventures, whereas in fact, a lot of it is they have professional manufacturing partnerships with established beauty companies. Like that's a very common thing, even for our favorite influencers brands. So yeah, so that was kind of the big scandal. And while Seed and Kylie experienced plenty of success for 4 years, the beauty conglomerate Coty actually acquired a 51% controlling stake in Kylie Cosmetics in November of 2019. So that meant that manufacturing, distribution, and growth strategy would move to be under Coty rather than Seed Beauty. And I actually just saw recently, it was rumored in, well, I guess not that recently, but it was rumored in 2023, which felt like yesterday, that Kylie was actually exploring the possibility of buying back that 51% from Coty. But as of this recording, that has not happened. All right, let's run through the icons, shall we? Oh, gosh, I love all these. Okay, Super Shock Shadow, the OG, their first release. Still some of their best products. What I like about the Super Shock Shadow is that you can get them in a few different ways. You can get them as a single. You can just get one. You're like, I want that one gold. That's it. I don't want anything else. That's yours. But they also put that formula in a lot of their palettes. And so, in my Going Coconuts palette, for example, I think there might be two Super Shock Shadows in that one. I think. Don't quote me, but they do have them in different eyeshadow palettes as well. So you still get to experience the formula without having to buy only the single pan. You can have it be part of your whole look. Another icon that we didn't touch on yet is their cream gel eyeliner. Now, I remember I got a brown one very early on, and it's a gel, so it glides right on as it should. But I just really liked the color options, and I felt like it lasted a really long time. If anyone watches Robert Welsh, who's a makeup artist on YouTube, he swears by these eyeliners. He says he has them in every single color. He uses them in his kit. He uses them on clients. And I trust a makeup artist who says that they use it on clients. So I was like, I think there's something special about them, but it's nice knowing that a professional also thinks they're really special. Another icon, so their eyeshadow palettes in general, but I want to specifically hit on their 9-pan eyeshadow palettes. That's, I'd say, their most popular. And their monochromatic palettes are also really fun. So they have ones that are all blue, called Blue Moon, all purple, called Lilac You a Lot, all green, Mint to Be, and Blow and Smoke, which is a black, gray, white, 75% of which I own, by the way. I was starting the monochromatic collection before I had to sit on my hands. But also, on top of their 9-pan, they also started creating their mega shadow palettes. So I'm considering their mega palettes as their 30-pan palettes. And I believe that their first one was with Kathleen Lights, who's one of their earliest influencer collaborations. And they created a mega shadow palette called the So Jaded palette. And from then on, they've created hits like a Fade into Hue, which is a rainbow palette, Precious Metals, which is more metallic shimmer, Bare Necessities, which is a warm neutral, and Stone Cold Fox, which has cool neutral tones. And a little spoiler alert, get close, get close. I have Stone Cold Fox, so I'm going to show it to you over on my Instagram. Also iconic, their lippy sticks. Now, this was, again, one of their earlier launches, their lippy sticks and their lip pencils. Their lippy sticks I'm going to hit on specifically because I got, like I said, an entire collection of these. And I have them in matte mainly, and they last. They're so, like, comfortable, and they last, and the colors are beautiful. Some of their classic shades include Brink, Lumiere, and Grunge. I also have to give a shout out to the lip pencils. They glide just like the eyeliner pencils. I love a no tugging lip pencil. They're beautiful. Also iconic for them was their Pretty Fresh complexion line. So this now includes a concealer, a foundation, a tinted moisturizer, and a tinted foundation balm. This is definitely, I'd say, one of their most popular complexion products. I just remember the YouTubers I would watch in 2020, 2021 would talk so much about the concealer and the foundation specifically. And I haven't tried the tinted foundation balm yet, but that seems to be the new thing between Charlotte Tilbury's balm, like a stick balm is what I'm saying, Milani just came out with a stick balm. I think this might be something that's happening. But yeah, that entire line has been a big hit for them and continues to be. And then lastly, their BFF mascara, their award-winning color mascara, and it comes in 8 shades, and it's not your typical black, brown, navy blue. They have shades that include burgundy, cobalt blue, magenta, and vivid teal. So I'll end this episode with a quote from the Nelson siblings about their overall goal for ColourPop. We're driven by an inclusive approach to beauty. Our hope is to be a fun brand that empowers people to be playful and experiment with products in a way that isn't intimidating and makes them feel good about themselves. So those were the Chronicles of ColourPop. As always, let me know what you think of the brand. Leave me a comment. Let me know if you've tried their Super Shock Shadow, if you've been enticed walking past their end cap at Target. Please let me know. Feel free to share some of the brands that you'd like to see covered on this podcast. And don't forget to rate, subscribe, and share with other beauty nerds who would be interested in hearing these deep dives. I'll see you next time on the Cosmetic Chronicles.